Hey everybody, it's Cauliflower Man here, and I'm coming out with a video showing you guys how to build a billion-dollar blockchain, and I'm actually going to give you guys an example. But let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I made a video recently saying that ICOs suck, and they do. They're terrible. They're stupid. There's no reason to give a company your money before they have a product. That's what ICOs do. So I can't stand ICOs, but that doesn't mean I don't like blockchain businesses. You can do millions of blockchain businesses. I've got a couple products I'm working on myself that would require a blockchain. They wouldn't require blockchain, but I could create them using a blockchain a lot quicker than if I didn't use a blockchain, and for about 1/100th of the cost. So I will actually show you guys an example of that later on. I'm not trying to shill my product. It's still it's a prototype. It's basically just so you guys know I'm working on a board game that goes to this story that I'm writing, but I'm only showing it here to give you guys a solid example and give you guys a visual, because if I just talk about what I'm trying to say here, you guys won't really understand it. So after we get through with this slide, I will actually go to visuals. But even though ICOs suck, like I was just saying, you can always reverse an ICO. So with an ICO, you give them the money first and then they come out with a product. With a reverse ICO, you use the blockchain as an anchor, and the anchor acts as a ledger for smart contracts. So what does that mean? Well, if you use a blockchain as an anchor, that means that you're not actually worried, like the data, the important data is not actually stored on the blockchain. The blockchain just acts as a ledger for who has access to that data and who has ownership of that data. Okay, so why this is important is because you can then build a business without paying anyone any money. So there's no money involved in this. You build a business and all you say is, hey, I don't have the money to pay you right now, but if this product ever takes off, you will get paid a percentage return of the sales, and you can figure that all out through smart contracts. That way you can get people to work for you without having to pay them. And I know that you're going to be like, oh man, you're just a real shitty guy. You know, you're not going to pay your workers. Well, you got to understand there are so many people trying to make it in different businesses, and the blockchain-based businesses, it'll work best basically for like things involved with like the music industry, the video industry, with the writing industry, things like that. And those sort of industries have literally, like, there's probably 100 people trying to make it in that industry for every one person who makes it. So you've got all of this supply of workers who are willing to work, and they'll work for you for free, but they just don't have any place to work. And so like this would really help them out. But anyways, again, this just provides real-time digital asset manipulation. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say like let's make an easy example here before I show you my example. The easy example could be like, let's say you're some sort of musician, and if you've ever known a musician, or if you've ever been a musician yourself, you know it's super hard to find a good band. Like, that's what keeps most musicians from making it. There's a lot of musicians who could make it, they just don't have the right bandmates, they don't have the right connections. So like, let's say you're just some guitarist and you do a bunch of like you're a lead guitarist, so you've got all these awesome solos, but you don't know what to do with them. What you could do is you could download these solos onto you know, some blockchain somewhere and be like, look, if you guys want to use this solo for your song, go for it. All you have to do is give me a cut of, like, you know, 15% of the song sales, and then you can take it. And so that's what I mean when I say, and this would all be on the blockchain. So you would upload a you would upload the solo onto a website outside of the blockchain, but when you uploaded the solo, or when the guitarist uploads his solo onto the blockchain, or not onto the blockchain, onto this external website, it's recorded on the blockchain. So then the blockchain acts as proof that he's like, look, I download this onto the blockchain, it's right here. So anybody who uses it later on, they're going to have to complete a smart contract with me, so that then I will be able to get paid for it. Okay, so it just acts as an anchor, and that helps provide real-time digital asset manipulation. And again, it has to be digital assets. These sort of blockchain businesses I'm talking about, they have to be involved with digital assets. So that's why I'm saying it has to be, you know, for musicians, it has to be for people in the, you know, video industry, whether it's movies or TV or whatever, or writers. Anything that can be represented digitally, this is what it works for. And the great thing again is it can create companies at 1/100th of the cost, because when you're talking about a band, like let's say you've got let's say that soloist somehow through a blockchain meets up with a bunch of different other band members. They can be across the world. They don't even have to know each other, but then they can create great music together and create songs, and they're all connected by the blockchain. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a blockchain-based business and a reverse ICO, and that's why you can create companies at 1/100th of the cost, because it basically lets the blockchain do all the tough work for you. So now let's go ahead and show you guys an example. So this is something I've been working on for a long time, or not necessarily a long time. It's still in a prototype stage, so if you read through it, you'll find you'll probably find typos. You'll find things like, if you were to pay enough attention, you'll find things that won't make sense as far as the game goes. This is still an early stage prototype, but this was a board game that I've been working on for a while that also goes with this sort of epic sci-fi fantasy story that I've been writing. But so right here initially, this would be one of the characters. It's basically a board game or where you would battle each other. Another thing to notice, that like if you look at all the different information I have here, I think right now it's too complicated to be a board game, so it would actually work better as like a very simple, you know, video game. I don't know if any of you have ever played the game called Critical Mass. It was an old, like a very, very old space combat game. This would work well if it were made in a similar style as Critical Mass. It's like a turn-based combat game. But anyways, if I were trying to make this combat game with a blockchain business, what I would do is I would first be like, okay, you see that image right there, that image of the predator looking dude? That's basically what this person is supposed to look like. That's not the image I want to use. I need that image redone because I literally just took that from Google, so if I were to use that, that would be, you know, it'd be illegal. But so I need some sort of artist to create some sort of artwork for this character. So obviously I've given them this picture. I want it to be something sort of similar. They should sort of look predator-like because these guys have tendrils coming out of the back of their heads. But anyways, so I would put up this picture, I would upload it to a website, and then I'd be like, okay, this picture would be then given a wallet address. So anyone then later on who would do any sort of manipulation to it, like let's say you were an artist and you wanted to do a manipulation to it, that artist would also have a wallet address on this blockchain, and so then they would just send a very small amount of coins of any type. It could be just you know, 1/100th of a cent, and then that would give them access to work on this project. And so again, the price of this, like, it requires microtransactions because you have to make a payment in order to prove that you know, something happened on the blockchain. Like, in order to record something on the blockchain, you have to make a payment, so it'd be some sort of super small microtransaction, and then that would just give that person access to this file, and then they could manipulate it in some way, or they can just upload a new file. And then me being the, I guess, owner of this sort of company here, I could decide, you know, do I want to use this, do I not want to use that? And I know a lot of people will think here, they'll be like, well, what if you don't use the artist's image? Well, the good thing about using this on a blockchain is that the artist still has access to their own images as well. So if I don't use their image, they can send their image to someone else. The one thing that sucks about being an artist and basically any sort of industry is when someone tries to contract you to do work, if they don't accept your work, then your work was completely wasted. So with something like this sort of blockchain thing, you could have basically artists who just have these huge repositories of all the work they've ever done, and they can also offer their images up for somebody. So like maybe instead of me trying to get some artists to work on this image I already have and sort of just create a new one, maybe I would actually just go look to a bunch of different artists that are already on this website that has the blockchain anchor, and they've already got all these images downloaded, and they're just like, hey, if you use this image for a product, you can. I just want, you know, 30% of the profit that the image brings you. So I'd be like, yeah, I want that. I want that as the image for my character, and so you'll get 30% of the profit that was directed towards that specific character. And so again, the other thing too, like I was talking about, I wanted this to be a board game. So if this was all done with a blockchain anchor, you could actually track the sales of that particular character. So like it literally makes like it makes the through the use of smart contracts, it makes it super easy to make sure everyone gets paid fairly. Because like one thing that, like, the whole reason lawyers and all these law firms make all this money is because it's so hard to figure out who should get paid what. But if you have a system of smart contracts in place already for a business like this, then it would be like, okay, you will get paid a certain percentage of how much this product product sells. So it's very simple, it's very straightforward. If you look down below, there's still all this information here. So before it gets down to the attack cards, this would all just be on the character sheet. So the picture of the character, then the basic information about him, the attack phases, the range, the movement phases, how much he can jump, his health. Then you've got the attack cards. So if you've ever played any sort of board game, you have to have some sort of artwork on the cards that you use. So these cards would have to look pretty cool. You know, these are just the attack and defense values he has in combat, and so you would just have, you know, 52 cards there, and you just want to make it look cool. And so I would just be like, look, I need some attack cards made up, some artwork for some attack cards for a board game. Can someone make that for me? And again, it makes it all super simple, because then someone can just upload this to the website, and then through the use of a blockchain anchor, everything is already figured out as far as the smart contracts go. Like I might be like, look, you make the artwork for the attack cards, I'll give you 20% of the sales on those attack cards. You know, I don't know what it exactly would be a fair percentage. I just made that number up. But then some artists might be like, look, you know, this is a solid project you got. If they looked at the whole project, obviously the project is much bigger than this one character. I've got like 36 characters right now. But anyways, they would make these attack cards, and then that would be one part of it. Going into more detail, each one of these characters I have, they've got more than just attack cards. They've got skill cards. If you look at this right here, you can read what each one of these does. And each one of these, like, there's rules involved with how this game works, so it gets sort of complicated. But there's a lot of work that I need done for this. And if I were to try and do this, like if I were to go to some, you know, board game place or some place that makes board games, I think Mattel might, or Mattel's Barbie. I don't remember who, or is it the Parker Brothers? I don't know who it is who does the board games, who's big, but if I were to go ask them, they'd be like, we need to hire an artist, we need to put in, you know, it'd probably take like $100,000 at least to get started on this. I don't really want to spend that much money on this. I could just put it out into a community, and if the project was good enough, then I could get some artists to do some work on it just by promising them to have, you know, a stake in the future sales of this. And it goes beyond just these just beyond the skill cards, there's special cards as well, again, so there's more cards that I would need made. And then beyond the cards for the game, there's also maps. So if you look here, I just found something online where you could basically build, I think this is supposed to be for like Dungeons and Dragons, so that you can build sort of dungeons and stuff, but I did it to sort of build different types of maps that I would want to use for this board game, where again, it's a combat board game, so the different characters would be on these maps and they'd just be killing each other or whatever. But if you look at this, you know, you can see like there's a couple structures here. Those are supposed to be stairs that lead up to the structures, but because it's 2D, you can't see, you know, which one's at a different height than the others. There's also different sort of barriers there, so people could hide behind them so they can't get shot. A lot of the people in this game, they battle with swords or they battle with axes or melee weapons, so you know, they would hide behind those until they can get close enough to a character. Those red and blue sort of circular looking things, those would be power-ups. You know, and so there's a lot going on to this, but it's something that, if I were to try to do this on my own or to pay for this to be done, like, it's going to take a lot of money. And again, I'm not trying to sit here and shill like my product here, because it's still way in a prototype stage, and that's not what this is about. I'm shilling the blockchain idea for it, but nobody's really building this sort of blockchain type business, and it sort of boggles my mind, because if you look at the numbers, like, there's billions of dollars to be made in this. You could use this sort of an idea for basically like a YouTube style website. Obviously, you guys know what YouTube is. You're watching this on YouTube. YouTube has $4 billion in revenue every year, and if you did this, if you made a YouTube which used a blockchain anchor, it would actually improve upon YouTube, because then you could actually have, like, there's a lot of people who make YouTube videos, I guess myself would be included, who aren't really all that great at video editing, and they would like video editors to edit their videos, but how do they get that done? If you had a blockchain anchor that was associated with a video sharing website, then you could actually, through the use of smart contracts, have people manipulate your video for you, and you could just be like, look, if you can, you know, edit this video in a way that I like, I'll give you 10% of the the profit that I make off the video. And so that's something that YouTube can't do. So these blockchain based businesses, as far as it concerns, digital asset companies or companies that are based upon selling digital assets, which that's a huge number of companies, like basically everything on the internet does this, but it would improve upon those, and then the prices for doing all those things would greatly decrease. Because if you look at some of the big YouTube channels, like they're paying huge amounts of money to find new video editors, to find different things or different workers to help with their YouTube videos, and a lot of times they waste a lot of money trying to find somebody who will work. Well, if you did it through a blockchain business, it's not money first, because this is a reversed ICO, so it's do the work first, the money comes later. So obviously that's far more efficient. But anyways, I hope this sort of explained a little bit of why I hate ICOs, because if you look at a reverse ICO and compare an ICO to a reverse ICO, like, it's just night and day. But anyways, so yeah, I hope that explained that a little bit better to you. Again, the example I showed you where I'm talking about a board game I'm making, that would be one of the lower profit types of blockchains to create. You would make a lot more money creating a blockchain-based business where you used a blockchain anchor if it was for things like music, because a lot more people listen to music than spend money on board games, and you'd make more money doing a website similar to something like YouTube. But again, this is what I'm talking about when I say ICOs suck. The current state of smart contracts suck, because they're all based on financial bullshit. But if you look at something like this, when you're actually talking about creating companies, you can create companies for 1/100th of the cost that companies are coming out for today, and it's like, why the hell is nobody even trying to do this? And I'll tell you why. It's because they're scamming you with their ICOs. This is a legitimate blockchain-based business, but the reason why people don't do it is because you would actually have to create a cryptocurrency for this, but the cryptocurrency created for the specific business wouldn't be worth very much, so you're never going to attract outside investors for that. It's something that requires venture capitalists in order to build. And the thing about if you ran the blockchain-based business, how I said before, like if you're one of the persons using it, like I would be one person to use it. So if you're thinking about this, like there are customers out there. I'm waiting for this. I've been waiting for this for years, but nobody's doing it. But anyways, not only is it that the smart contracts work for the people who are building the businesses, but whoever runs the website and whoever runs the blockchain could just be like, look, every sort of business that runs on this, I want a 2% cut. So just think about that. Like, if you think about the profit potential for that, like imagine how many things like Star Wars could be created on your blockchain, or Dragon Ball Z, or Lord of the Rings, or anything like that. I guess not necessarily Lord of the Rings. That was more of one guy writing a book, but any sort of big project where you're creating some sort of artistic, masterpiece. Like Star Wars is a multi-billion-dollar industry, or a multi-billion-dollar market, and it has been for decades. So if you were to get 2% of that, like you are one rich mamma jamma. You know what I'm talking about? So there's huge amounts of money to be made in this, but nobody's really moving the ball forward in this. Or in this sector or industry, and it really sort of irritates me because I've been waiting on this. Like I have a bunch of, this is not my only project that I'm working on that I could create a lot quicker if I could use a blockchain based business or a blockchain anchor, and then use smart contracts to be like, look, if you can create some sort of artwork for me, I'll give you a guaranteed cut on future sales. And again, the other thing you got to remember for artists, like, because a lot of people will be like, oh, you're not going to pay artists. Well, artists don't get paid anyways, and they don't get any sort of recognition, and then it's very hard for them to find any sort of work so that they can put it in like a binder and be like, look, I haven't really made any money as an artist yet, but I've been doing all this work. Here's my book of all my work. Look at it. That's a big thing for an artist. So something like this can really help artists out. It can help out musicians. It can help out writers. So if you're some sort of developer who can make this happen, do it. You're going to make billions of dollars, but we'll see if it happens. Again, the one thing that I can't say about the crypto community is they're all going in one direction, and they're all going in that direction very slowly. I really want this to come out. Obviously, I'm personally very biased. I've got a lot of different projects that I want to use a blockchain anchor for, but there's no way for me to do it. So I'm just sitting here waiting. Like, I'm waiting for the product to come into existence, but it doesn't exist yet. But anyways, I hope you liked that video, and I hope it helped explain a little bit about where blockchain businesses should be going as opposed to where they actually are going right now.